Done.
Right. Well, hello, everyone. This is our annual child welfare update for fiscal year 2019 through 2020. And my name is Nathan Scott. I'm the Child Welfare Policy Coordinator with the Florida Department of Health for Manatee, Sarasota, and DeSoto counties. So what is the Child Welfare Policy Coordinator? Formerly, some of you may have recalled that the title used to be a Child Welfare Systems Advocate. That has recently changed due to some advice from DOH legal counsel that state employees are not able to advocate for things, so we are able to educate. So it was recommended that the title change to policy coordination as opposed to systems advocate. And within the realm of things that I do, I monitor our child welfare agency's performance, both qualitative and quantitative, which we will go over that today. I review all critical incidents and child deaths that happen in our circuit that are reported to the child abuse and child death hotlines with the Department of Children and Families. We'll review a little bit of that information today. Review any systemic concerns and emerging issues from micro level things such as family related issues, the case specific, all the way up to macro related systemic issues that may be brought forth to see if there's any changes that we can make on a local or even statewide level. I research best practices and assist with new initiatives. We'll go over a few of those towards the end of the presentation, and do annual reporting, which is what we're doing today. And one of the main things that I'm required to do is provide the Family Safety Alliance assistance, which is our community alliance that is established under Florida Statute 20.19. And our mission is to serve as a collaborative, prevention-focused, and transparent partner that provides community oversight, education, and advocacy in the achievement of systemic improvements in community-based child welfare services. So many of you are familiar with adverse childhood experiences. I am not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I really like this visual that shows the pair of ACEs. So it's adverse childhood experiences, which include substance abuse, homelessness, divorce, etc., as well as adverse community environments, which poor housing quality and affordability, discrimination, poverty, a lot of these things that we're hearing about in the news these days. Combine any of these things together, and we see an increase in potential adverse outcomes throughout that child's life into adulthood. This is important because it kind of sets the stage on what our kids are experiencing now as children, and what we typically see as cyclical things. So as adults, there may be issues with their children as well. So we're going to start with looking at the numbers, and we're going to go through what Manatee Child Protection Investigations looks like, protective supervision once kids come to the recognition of the department, permanency for children once they do enter care. We're going to look at substance abuse, mental health, and domestic violence rates in the county, and also our child deaths that were reported to the hotline in this fiscal year. So when we look at child removals and removal rate per 100 alleged victims, I just wanted to provide this visual, a snapshot in time. This is for June of 2020. And as you can see, over the course of a 6-year period from 2014 to 2020, it's a up and down, peaks and valleys. But the main thing to focus on really is this age group where you can see the majority of the children that we are removing, and we'll show you the numbers in just a little bit. But the visual here shows you that predominantly they're 0 to 5 years old. So they're not in school and they're less able to protect themselves. And when we look at numbers specifically in comparison with our 3 counties from 2014 to 2020, you can see that Manatee leads all 3 counties in removal rates per 100 alleged victims in all of 6 of those years, 6 or 7 of those years. Highlight here really is 2015 when the opioid epidemic struck. You can see a dramatic jump from 322 removals to 586 in that year. And we've been on a steady, pretty steady since then. And this 151 is just the first 6 months of 2020, so January through June. And there should be an asterisk here that caveats COVID-19. Because we have seen a dramatic drop in reporting to the hotline, which means a dramatic drop in investigations and obviously a dramatic drop in removals. So from July to December of 2019, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, who does our child protection investigations in Manatee County, investigated 2,179 allegations of child abuse, abandonment, or neglect, with 253 removals in that time frame. 108 children were less than 5 years old, so that was 43%, the largest age group by far. And the reasons that we're removing kids in that time frame were substance use, including substance-exposed newborns, domestic violence, which includes household members and intimate partners, and inadequate supervision. I always point out, as many of you know, all three of these things kind of go together. They're co-occurring. You're much more likely to see domestic violence incidents with stimulant use or alcohol use, and inadequate supervision with alcohol use, drug use in general, but especially opiates. And the zip codes in that time frame were 34205, 34208, and 34207. And we did end the year of 2019 with the fourth highest removal rate per 100 alleged victims in the state. That was Manatee County. So we were actually ahead of Miami-Dade and Broward, obviously with much larger populations. And that's a trend we've seen over the past 5 years. We've been rated in the top 5, if not #1, for quite some time. So from January to June, investigations did drop, of course, as I mentioned, with COVID. So there were 1,942 investigations with 151 removals. 73 of those removals were children under 5 years of age, which is 48%. Again, the largest age group by far. And it's the same 3 reasons predominantly for the reason we're removing kids: substance use, domestic violence, and inadequate supervision. And your zips remained exactly the same. You had a switch from 34207 jump to number 2 versus 34208, but they're the same 3 zip codes. And that's historically a trend as well. Excuse me. And some good news, at the end of June of 2020, we had dropped to the 14th highest removal rate per 100 alleged victims in the state, which was our lowest ranking and below the state average for the first time in 5 years. So what happens once we remove kids? They are transferred to what's called protective supervision, and there they receive case management services. And in Manatee County, that all of those services, protective supervision and case management, are provided by the lead agency, Safe Children Coalition, who subcontracts some of those services out to Lutheran Services of Florida and the Florida Center for Early Childhood. So a snapshot in time, and as of June 2020, we had 966 children under supervision in Manatee County. 490 of those kids, about half, were in out-of-home care, so not with their parent. 151 of the 490 children were in licensed foster care. So the rest of those kids in out-of-home care were with relatives or non-relatives. 55 of those children in licensed care were in what we call group or congregate care, so a group home with shift staff, which we are in the process of phasing out as much as we can, and we were serving 307 children in the home. As for our out-of-home care capacity, I'm sure a lot of you hear a lot out in the community that foster parents are very important, obviously, and that we need them constantly. And so here's our numbers as of June of what our capacity was when it came to foster care and foster beds. So we had 398 licensed foster beds in Circuit 12, so we could theoretically therefore have 398 children still placed in Circuit 12 in a total of 213 homes. And the breakdown looks like this in Manatee County. 210 of those beds are in Manatee County and approximately 58 homes. It's very important that we have our capacity is high, hopefully exceeding what we would need, because when we do have to remove kids for abuse, abandonment, neglect, we want to keep them in the county that they are originated from, so they're close to their families and they can visit with their families, they can go to the same schools and those sorts of things. They can see their friends, very important. So as children enter into the system, one of the main things that we want to do is make sure that they obtain permanency, which would be reunification with their parents, adoption or closure with their grandparent or their non-relative, which could be a coach or a teacher, hopefully within 12 months, because 12 months is a long time in the life of a child, especially as you saw 50% of those kids approximately are under 5, so a year is a very long time in those children's lives. So what that looked like in this past fiscal year was that we sent 242 children successfully and safely back home with their parents. 72 children were closed permanent guardianship with their relative or a non-relative. Non-relative, again, is a legal term for a fictive kin. And 81 children were adopted. All of that, it was in Manatee County numbers. We did have 26 children age out or turn 18 while in foster care. We would like to see that number lower, but that was the number of kids we had for this past fiscal year. Some contemporaneous factors that we want to look at, since we know that the reason we're removing kids is because of substance use, domestic violence, and inadequate supervision, is some numbers related to drug overdoses and drugs in general. So the most recent information that was available that I could grab was from the medical examiner's report of 2018, Manatee County Emergency Medical Services 2020, the Sheriff's Office, and the Bradenton Police Department. And so the medical examiner report is always a year and a half or so behind on the data. But as of 2018, the medical examiner report noted 70 deaths related to fentanyl, 21 related to carfentanil, 17 related to heroin, and 96 related to cocaine. The heroin deaths have gone down dramatically, most likely due to the readily available Narcan being available over the counter and those sorts of things. But keep an eye on cocaine. As you see, it is higher than fentanyl, carfentanil, and heroin. We obviously have the opioid epidemic, but there's still just a general drug use epidemic out there that we have to keep our eye on. The Manatee County EMS reported at the time that I gathered this data, 413 Narcan administrations. So you can see the number there, 413 administrations versus the 17 heroin deaths. They're saving a lot of lives out there. So it's very, very important to note. Manatee County Sheriff's Office had responded to 323 overdoses in the community, with 34 of those resulting in a death. And Bradenton had responded to 81 overdoses, with 4 of those resulting in deaths. So these are just numbers to look at of what is going on out there in the community as it relates to overdoses. And sometimes we see, a lot of the time we see co-occurring issues where substance use is co-occurring with mental health issues. So one way to look at that is involuntary and voluntary commitments of children and adults, and what that looks like in Manatee County. So as of 2019, in Manatee County, we had 628 children Baker acted to Centerstone to their children's crisis unit. Briefly, a Baker Act is an involuntary commitment of a child or an adult who is a danger to themselves or others due to a mental health issue. So 628 kids met that criteria in 2019. And in 2019, and as it relates to adults, almost 3,000 adults were Baker acted or Marchman acted, which is a Marchman Act is the same as a Baker Act, except it relates to substances as opposed to mental health. So we had nearly 2,000 Baker Acts for adults in 2019 and about 1,000 Marchman Acts as related to adults, with 486 of those Marchman Acts actually admitted for long-term treatment. Again, just numbers to look at as it relates to the substance use issues that are going on in the community. Again, we know that the second reason we're removing kids in Manatee County is domestic violence. So I wanted to see, what does violent crime rate look like? The most recent data we could check out from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement was violent crimes as it relates in 2018. So there was 188 murder rape cases in Manatee County, 1,616 assault and robberies. And when it came to domestic violence, it was 2,252. So you can see that there is a lot of domestic violence in our community. And this is again in 2018. There are possibilities that domestic violence has increased since COVID has taken place because folks are trapped at home and unable to go out as frequently and not being seen as frequently by other people. So keep that in mind. And lastly, when it looks at numbers, these are child deaths that are reported to the Department of Children and Families hotline. We would like to see all child deaths reported to the hotline, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. But the ones that were, In 2019, during this fiscal year, there was one in Manatee County that was a drowning. It was a 1-year-old. And in 2020, so far from January through July, there have been 7 reported. One was a car accident. We had 3 drownings, 1, 2, and 3 years old, and 3 sleep-related under 1 year. So around the state, the trend really is drowning deaths and sleep-related deaths, sleep-related especially for children under 1. So we do see that trend here in Manatee County. So as we had mentioned before, some of the things that we like to do, knowing all of these numbers, what are we doing about some of these things? What are some innovative ways that we're trying to tackle some of these issues? And so we're going to go over a few community initiatives that are taking place in Manatee County, such as Handle with Care, our prevention and diversion programs that are funded through the CSAB, and our early childhood core team and our reunification team. And Handle with Care is one of the things I'm most proud about, because Handle with Care, Manatee County was the first county in Florida to launch Handle with Care. It's an initiative from West Virginia that's aimed at helping children succeed by alerting school principals and other school personnel with a simple notice when a student experiences a traumatic event involving law enforcement or child protective services the night before. And so some numbers to see how this initiative has done in Manatee County is that since we launched in April of 2018, 554 notices have been submitted to the Manatee County School District. We have seen a decrease in notices, obviously, since COVID and children have transitioned to virtual learning. So we're hoping to see that goes back to those notices being submitted. When we're looking at the data, September is recording the largest volume of notices from law enforcement and child protection to the school district. Our highest number of notices are going to King Middle School and Palmetto High School. And then the grades associated are 2nd grade, 4th grade, and 9th grade. And the children are 6 to 8 years old or 10 to 12 years old. Those are the highest age ranges that are receiving those notices. The zip codes for Handle with Care that we've been tracking are 34208, 34221, and 34203. And one of the exciting things that, again, was a Manatee County initiative was to establish a Handle with Care Florida website, which we have done thanks to the leadership of Drug Free Manatee. And you can check out that website at www.handlewithcareflorida.fl.org. Briefly, I wanted to just go over family support and safety management services, these are services that work with families of moderate to high risk prior to them making that deeper dive into the child welfare system. So these are families we are working with that are at the verge of being removed, but have not yet been removed. So for 2020, this should read 2019, 2020, I apologize. But for our prevention services provided by the Safe Children Coalition, you can see here with the numbers that we're at a 96% rate of no removals with family support services, about an 84% rate on safety management services, which gives us about a 90% rate overall, which goes to show if we can catch these families early and provide these services up front, we can prevent at least 90% of those kids from entering out-of-home care. There's some other programs that I wanted to highlight that are diverting children from the child welfare system and also preventing re-removals once those children have been entered into the system but then been reunified. These are 2 programs that are funded through the Children's Services Advisory Board that I wanted to highlight the success of what these programs have done for everyone to be able to see this. So for our prevention services here, we have our reunification support program. So what this program does is once children are removed from their homes and then subsequently reunified with their parents, this program provides intensive in-home services and support for families to reduce the recidivism, so to reduce the possibility of these kids coming back into care. And as you can see, 89% of the families that have worked with this program did not re-enter care once those kids went home. And we've served 329 children in 201 families since this program has been active. In addition to that, we have our child welfare diversion program, which is provided by Centerstone. And this is intensive wraparound services and support for families with an open child protection investigation, again, to prevent removal. So as you can see here, we started this program in fiscal year 17-18. We served 118 families of the 251 referrals with a success rate of 94%. And in fiscal year 18-19, 209 families served with a success rate of 96%. And so far in this fiscal year through August 12th, we've served 138 families, 314 children in those families. And we have a 97.6% success rate of those children being diverted from the child welfare system. So that, as you can see with the numbers, the program keeps getting better and better. Another program that subsequently is funded through the Children's Services Advisory Board is our early childhood court team here in Manatee County. And the goals of the early childhood court, Florida's early childhood court system, is to stop the intergenerational cycle of maltreatment, promote timely permanency, heal trauma and the parent-child relationship, and improve child safety and well-being. This particular model is a national model that focuses on children from 0 to 3 or 0 to 5 years old, knowing that the first 1,000 days of a child's life is one of the most important times for development and attachment. So this is a very fast-track court system for that age group of kids. There is court more frequently. It's monthly as opposed to every 6 months. We meet with the families more frequently. Visitation is more frequently. So it's geared towards permanency. So majority of the families, as you will see, are reunified, but if reunification is not likely within that first year, we do go towards other permanency options such as adoption. But here are some numbers that you can see, from some statewide numbers for our early childhood court program in comparison to some Manatee numbers, where we're unifying with parents in 259 days or 8.5 months sooner than children of this age group that are not in this program. And so that is, right now, it's 8.7 months for those children being reunified successfully and safely with their parents, which is phenomenal. We're achieving permanency, which could be adoption or permanent guardianship with the relative, 143 days or 4.75 months sooner than children who are not in this program. And so in Manatee County right now, that is 444 days from the time they're removed that they are achieving permanency. So just a little over a year. And only 22 of the 356 children who are in this program throughout the state have re-entered the dependency system due to re-abuse, compared to 36 of the 366 children not in this program. It's approximately 3% less frequently. And in Manatee County, we've only had one child that has been through this program since it's been active since 2018 that has re-entered out-of-home care. Highly successful program. And so that's just a brief highlight. I only had a brief period of time, and I encourage any questions that anyone has to please have those prepared for the September Children's Services Advisory Board meeting, where I'll be present to answer any of those questions. And I always like to leave a presentation with the analogy of the long road that you see in front of you. It is a long road that we are on to protect children and keep them safe and get families to where they need to be. But at least, as you can see on this road, there are some really pretty mountains at the end of this road. At least this road is paved. It's not a dirt road. So there are some positives. We have to keep our eye on the prize, but there are some positives to help us get there. And lastly, I'll leave you with my contact information, and I appreciate everyone's time.
Very good.